All right, there. Had a tech issue. Bethany, are you going to share the PowerPoint?
Yes, I am doing that right now.
All right, sounds good. All right, so let's get into it. What are employee resource groups? So I think first, before we get into actually what employee resource groups are, we just have to understand some of the underlying issues why having these organizations, these groups within our companies are really a benefit. Because of the diverse workplace, we have folks that are underrepresented in most facets of America, and so they face explicit bias, and their impact to be comfortable and bring their authentic selves to work is sometimes jeopardized, depending on what the culture, the environment, the culture is within the companies. And so ERGs really create safe spaces for courageous conversations to take place. There is an opportunity for us to learn from one another. So oftentimes when we are not affinity members in a certain group, we become allies of that group so that we can better understand, and from that understanding, there's courageous conversations, and a bond is kind of formed with your coworkers. And if you are at a management level, it can really spark really great conversations with those that report to you, so that creative ideas can take place from that. And so that's why these are important. Um, we also know too, just diversity, equity, and social justice, from their advocacy, that work that those folks do. Um, Again, that ERGs create psychological safe zones, um, corporations that allow time off. And I added this in because we are in that voting season as a critical component. And so the ERGs, the current company that I work at, all of our ERGs have put out communications, comms related to the importance of getting out to vote, information related to time off that the company allows to vote. And so also there are some hubs, some of our locations, we call them hubs here at this where I work. So forgive me for that. But some of our hubs are putting out information about where folks can go, links and such, where they can go to vote. And some of our employees that are part of our ABLE committee or community, so they have disabilities and such. Their resources, their comms include those resources on how they can get assistance to get to the polling locations. And then also advocacy around some of the guidelines for inclusion. So making sure that we're trying on different perspectives in our workplace. Also, always being aware of the intent. So not always. ERGs help to have these courageous conversations, and within those are guidelines for inclusion, so that when we're having courageous conversations, we understand trying on different perspectives are important, being aware of intent and also the impact. And then some emotional intelligence training. Our ERGs here, we put on trainings around self awareness, self management, social awareness. So, externally, what is happening externally that may be impacting our employees? And also, beyond that, we also try to send out communications to make sure that employees know that we understand and we see what may be impacting their particular group, and also within those communications, providing resources for those that may need some type of resource to get through whatever is externally impacting them. And so, employee resource groups, or sometimes companies call them business resource groups, were born in the 60s, started in the 60s. Um, by African American employees post race riots, to give those employees at Xerox a psychological safe space to talk about what was happening during that time period. And ERGs since then have become a vital component to workspaces for underrepresented, marginalized groups and allies to discuss unconscious bias, such as microaggressions in the workplace. And so I know at the company that I work at, the microaggression, the courageous conversations around microaggression has been by far the most attended. I work at a company that's about 50,000 large, and so that particular event had over 6,000 views so far. So it's really a great conversation. Sometimes folks are not even aware. That's why it's considered unconscious bias. They're not even aware that what they may be doing or saying is considered a microaggression. Through employee resource groups, too, what we've noticed is that cultural competency, cultural competency is increased. So, if you grew up in a community and you never interacted with anyone that looked different from you, um, these groups increase your cultural competency so that you understand culturally why maybe one of your employees or peers responds the way they do, or um, better yet, the impact that what we may say or do has on them, so that there is a more positive interaction in those work relationships. And so when we think about standing up ERGs, what is needed, um, common P's or pillars of ERGs are around the purpose. So what's the mission statement? Um, which is the vision to improve the employee experience in the community, and then the people who are the key stakeholders, who is going to be part of the ERG leadership, what affinity members are we targeting, the allies are is our messaging to our allies welcoming, and then also to our non-membership base. So just thinking of the people and then the processes. um, we're definitely going to, you'll definitely need to define and establish like a reporting structure. I'll get into that a little bit in a couple more slides, but also planning. So what is your meeting cadence going to look like? Are you going to meet every month? Are you going to meet bi-weekly? And then you always have to have a comm strategy. So who's going to be in charge of the comm strategy? What does that strategy look like? What are the modes of communication? Is it going to be email? Is it going to be a job, um, internal job um, platform? But how, or MS Teams? But what is the comm strategy? What does that look like? And then prioritize, so plan for the year. So and that's around key moments throughout the year. So it could be Black History Month, it could be Breast Cancer Awareness, Ovarian Cancer Month, um, just planning and prioritizing key moments throughout the year to celebrate for each of the ERGs. And then once you stood it up, and so you have your 5 P's in place, the framework within each of the ERGs, it's broken down into what we call the 4 C's. So you'll have culture. In that particular committee, what they're looking to do is provide, cultivate, and elevate an environment where all cultural differences and resources, we learn from each other, and create that creative space, where all of our ideas are valued. And then the second C is around career. So, identifying and providing resources to overcome those barriers and enhance career advancement and mobility. So, really, this, if you think of your company and maybe your frontline employees, they may never interact with your L2s, your L3s, and of those leaders. And so, this is an opportunity for where mentorships, a lot of mentorships take place, within this particular framework. Um, and so then the third is community connection. So if you think of in terms of, where your company is located in certain hubs, that your company may have, it's always important to engage and build relationships with external partners within that community. So, your nonprofit organizations. So, we, have had 3 or 4 initiatives, this year, with, one being, our ovarian cancer initiative. So, we partner with, the National Ovarian Cancer Coalition. We had a educational piece, so we brought in folks from that organization to take part in a panel discussion, and then we also had an action piece. So we took part in the walk. We also had a Dress for Success initiative where employees were given an opportunity to, donate some of their older clothing and such, professional, garments, to be donated for Just for Success, to be given away or to be sold, at little cost, to those looking for professional, garments and such. And then breast cancer awareness. So that's the month we're in now. So we will have a panel discussion. Um, and then there will be an action piece. And so that's where that community connection. There's also, we partner at many of our hub locations with, the local high schools. We also here have, I'm in the Plano area, Plano, Texas, outside of Dallas. So, we also have an initiative where we have partnered, with our ABLE ERG. And so that particular, which is part, they partner with a nonprofit, that employs those persons, that have been identified with, disabilities and such, and, they bring them, they provide them resources to get them to work. We are still largely a remote, company, and so, they also provide them with resources to work at home. And then fourth is commerce. So we really, this is the budget. They're responsible for the ERG budgets. They engage and amplify, um, our leaders around in, the internal business partners, to provide the visibility, um, and to execute on the ERG, vision. And then we have the ops and the comms. I included this in because, this group is very important too. um, they, again, they're responsible for the comm strategy at a national and local, and to amplify national and local events, and, to create clear and consistent, that should be consistent messaging that positively impacts the employee experience. And so really that is in a nutshell what the ERG, um, is, that foundationally it should always be to positively impact an employee's experience. And then also, this group, they're responsible for metric tracking. So, post events, they'll send out an event survey, to get feedback from employees. And then I'll pause here for any questions, so far. All right.
Hey, Jeanette, I just have one.
Yes.
So you had talked about the Courageous Conversations event. Could you give us a little bit of background about what that is and how they did that?
Yeah, so, great question. So the courageous conversations, were actually broken down into, several different discussions. One, again, was around, microaggression. Another was the unconscious bias, some implicit bias. And what they did was they had about 3 to 4 panelists, one moderator of the discussion, and then 3 to 4 additional panelists. And those folks really just share their experience in the workplace as it related to like microaggressions. And then they share some best practices and some resources to better understand what microaggressions are, how you can kind of self check, self regulate, right? So that you are not moving or having those type of discussions moving forward. And so those were MS Teams. So anyone from any of the hub locations could join. And they also record those. Does that answer your question, Bethany?
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. And then the structure. So and, and there are many different ways as you start to talk to different folks about maybe how they're standing up their ERGs and the structure. For us, and what I'm most familiar with is that you'll have executive sponsors. So these are your C-suite leaders. We have 2 for all of our ERGs. We have 7 ERGs here, and we have executive sponsors, 2 executive sponsors, and they provide the strategic guidance on what we're looking to accomplish that's tied back to our mission and our vision and our overall business outcome. And then we'll have co-chairs. So we'll have 2 co-chairs, and they provide guidance for the local ERG chapters. And then the committees. So if we think back to the 4 C's, um, those committees are all stood up, and then within those committees you'll have subcommittees, and then our volunteers um, really come from our membership base. I also include here as well is that within our at our company, this is all volunteer, and so there's no extra compensation related to being part of the ERGs. I do know that there are some companies, I think Progressive and Campbell Soup Company, there is an extra compensation benefit perk when you are part of the ERGs. And I'll also talk about budgeting here. So I was on a call a couple weeks ago with a company that's getting ready to start ERGs, and their budget is probably less than $1,000. And so most of this is you're looking how to get things done for free. So when we partnered with for ovarian cancer for the national, when we partnered with NOCC, um, there was no budget. And then I know at my company, a couple of our ERGs, their budget is 6 figures. So it is, although it's budget based for the most part, um, it depends on your membership base. You can stand up ERGs with little to nothing, and all in the good of improving your employee experience. And then these are just some ways to ensure change. I think it's important to include that our ERGs here, we all of the ERGs have a employee referral program, and that's just to ensure that we're hiring diverse talent. Um, we also here have made great strides to make sure that our hiring panel committee is as diverse as it can be. I know too that our company isn't alone in the yearly executive metric that has some type of DEI performance related to it, to that metric to be measured. So um, just wanted to include that for those that may be in the HR space or at a L1, L2. And then these are some examples of ERGs. This is actually from LinkedIn. They um, recently won a award for some of the ERGs that they have, and so they have Embrace, which works to overcome unconscious bias and support um, cultural humanity for all. And this is an entry level um, ERG. So those that may just be coming out of high school, may never have been in corporate America before. This is a good ERG for those to be part of. Enable. Um, they also, this is a great organization. LinkedIn has been highlighted for that as well. Um, and then the Black Inclusion Group, Habibi. So they have been certainly awarded because they are a handful of organizations that actually have an ERG dedicated to supporting those from the Middle East, Arab, and Northern Africa. And then wisdom. This is another area where they have really identified and are keeping their employees that are 40 plus, keeping them supported and providing them a space. And women as well, out at LinkedIn, and then the veterans. And so, if you're looking for examples of ERGs, these are some good examples. You can always go online as well and just kind of look around the ERG space, I would say. And you'll get some good examples of what other companies are doing as far as creating safe spaces. I think that's it. So thank you for your time. Any other questions, clarification?
Jeanette, thank you so much for presenting that. There was a whole lot of useful information there. I think one of the most important things that individuals that may be wanting to start something like this in their company is understanding that, like Jeanette said, little to nothing, can start those ERGs. Just somebody dedicated to putting in the time. And then also, all of those can be tailored to whatever the needs are in your specific organization. Um, one of the things that we talked about in our first scene lunch and learn and was included in the inclusion guide is being able to do kind of those needs assessments and what those look like, and those needs assessments can really tell you where the direction of your company is from a people standpoint, how they're feeling, are they comfortable at work, are they not, and then being able to tailor those individual employee resource groups from there. Um, I think the other important thing, to know about employee resource groups is, if you do structure those at your organization, um, they're not, they don't need to be used for a complaint board. you know um Always, we always want to breed positivity. We definitely want those employees to express their feelings, but it is not a way to bypass necessarily the chain of command, if there's complaints or stuff like that. So really using those to breed conversations, breed positive conversations. I love, the crucial conversations, courageous conversations that Jeanette had talked about. I think those would be great for a number of companies. Just giving people a space, a safe space, to kind of voice some of their feelings and some of the things that have maybe been going on that leadership doesn't necessarily know about. So, before we stop recording here, does anybody have any questions at all? Anything? How do you get started? Just anything that you've got.
If not, I'm just going to leave us with um, some, with a couple of what I call golden nuggets. And what we know is that about 54% of employees who left their job in the past 6 months did not feel valued by their organization. And 51% expressed that they had they lacked a sense of belonging. We also know that companies that possess an inclusive culture are 6 times more likely to be innovative and agile. And so I think Bethany is spot on when she says this isn't like a space to come and complain. This is really a space to come and learn about one another. So from that learning and you can spark that creative and innovative um, sense of let's make sure that we are delivering on business outcomes. And then also I'd say make sure to don't think that you have to have a whole lot of folks that volunteer. Maybe you start off with 5 participants. And then I love too that Bethany said hit on the assessments. So if your company is a company that does the employee surveys, kind of do a deep dive into that. What are your employees saying? And then maybe that is the first you start, maybe you do a focus group, so you can better understand what it is that employees need, especially now where there's so much externally happening and taking place. I know that at my particular company, because of inflation and such, there's been a lot of conversations in from the ERGs around financial planning and some resources. Our family ERG, there has been resources shared for um, getting formula and baby items. And so I would just say that just to keep in mind, you don't need, do the assessments, listen to your employees, but also keep in mind that if you have to kind of seek permission from C-suite execs, you don't necessarily need to be asking for a big budget. Maybe you go in and you pitch it as, I don't even need a budget. I just would like permission based on some of the employee feedback to kind of stand this up and see if we're able to improve and have some measurables based on that.
Yeah, perfect. And then I just want to leave with one other thing too. Um, you know, I come from the social service world, and I know there's a couple others on the call that do also. Sometimes in the social service world, we're so involved in making sure that the individuals that we served or that we serve are comfortable, and that they have everything that they need, and we spend all this time as a company, and even the employees, ensuring that those individuals that we serve are okay, that we sometimes miss the mark on making sure our employees are okay. And this is a great way, implementing these employee resource groups is a great way, for our employees to make sure that they're feeling heard. And like we've said, to get those ideas to the table, see what the pulse really is of our employees, because, you know, especially in the social service world, if we're not taking care of ourselves and our employees, how can we expect them to take care of others? So, I will leave it at that. This recording will be up on the Scene website here by the end of the day. So, feel free to share that. We also have a Facebook page now. It is Springfield Employer Equity Network, Scene, obviously. And the video of the training will be on Facebook also, which is maybe an easier way to share that. But we'd love anybody to watch it, and always reach out if you have questions. There's ways to contact us on the website. You can contact us through Facebook. Like I said before, we're here to answer any questions that anybody has. So I appreciate everybody coming on today. And Jeanette, thank you so much for spending your time with us.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.